Hello, welcome back to the InsurTech podcast. Zoya, podcast producer here. After a little extended period of having Robin as host on the podcast, Matthew is back, and he is joined by Robin Roberson, social entrepreneur, insurance innovator, and co-founder of Agentech, a company using Agentic AI to streamline and enhance claims processing. Robin is no stranger to insurance and technology. Matthew catches up with Robin to discuss her journey from founding and scaling multiple companies to her latest venture in AI-driven automation. They also explore what Agentic AI really is, how it's changing the industry, and why now is the time for insurers to rethink claims handling. If you're curious about the future of claims technology, AI-driven efficiencies, or just looking for inspiration from a seasoned entrepreneur, this episode is for you. Now let's dive into the conversation.
Robin, brilliant to be talking to you again. I saw you in London last week. I don't know, what were you doing in London in February? It's a pretty miserable place to be at that time of year. It's a real delight to be talking to you again. We'll talk a bit about the last discussion we had back in November 2020, which is actually during COVID. We'll come back to that in a moment. But we saw each other last week in London, the event we were doing in the Google offices with Operalytics and Cirrus. Great to see you there. But why on earth were you in London in February? That's the last place I'd recommend anybody spend any time in.
Oh, well, great to see you, Matthew. And thank you for asking me to join you this morning. I love London any time of the year. And frankly, the weather is the same where I live. So that was it was neither hit nor miss there on the weather. But originally, the plan was to attend the Gen AI of London conference. And of course, your event as well the following evening. So it was a wonderful time in London, seeing all the sites, but then also hearing all the great things happening with AI and, of course, Gen AI.
Well, Oklahoma in February, I think the first time we tried to record a few years ago, we actually had a storm that stopped us recording. So we're good. Well, I'm glad you're a successful trip in London. And a bit about your background, just so people know, they've got the context. So you founded WeGoLook. You were there for 11 years. You sold it back in 2017 to Crawford, publicly information, $36 million. So congratulations on that. Really intriguing story. I don't want to go back over too much of that unless there's anything you want to talk about, obviously. But I do recommend our previous podcast, 112. It was 230 episodes ago. November 20, lots of really, really good stuff in there from you. I just asked the questions. But now you've been doing a number of things. And was it back end of last year you founded Agentech? So we're going to go and talk about that.
I would say that, WeGoLook was an amazing journey, a great learning experience, especially being one of the initial pioneers of InsurTech, right? When no one knew how to spell it correctly. And I talk a little bit about that because it really helped me hone in on the claims process, understanding that very, very well. And at the time, it was quite manual, and oddly, it's still quite manual. There hasn't been too much of a lift there, which is why I'm still working on that efficiency. I am determined to help the claim adjuster, claim handler, desk adjuster, field adjuster even make this process more efficient.
Robin, before you go on, I just want to let those people listening who may not be necessarily entirely focused on claims, but we're going to spend quite a bit of time talking about your own personal lessons from building a number of companies, various other things as we've talked about in the past. But you definitely want to hear more about Agentech and what you're doing in claims. But I also don't want to lose those people who I know learn an awful lot from your story about how you founded various companies. So with that, I did say we talk about Agentech. So back to you. Tell us what's happening with Agentech and why you're motivated to found it.
Sure. So, after Crawford, after I stayed on with Crawford and WeGoLook for about 2.5 years. And then I worked with a company out of Australia, Claim Central, was managing director of North America, helping them. Stayed there for about 2 years and sold a portion of that software to Eberl Claim Services in the US, but couldn't stay away from the founder seat. And Agentech was actually founded about 17 months ago and was in stealth mode until late fall, I would say, late summer, early fall of last year. And initially was focused on pet health insurance claims. So really working on wellness claims, but also any kind of procedure for pet claims. And so that was the learning point coming in, leveraging AI. And I think, to your point, it's finding a problem and then creating a solution. I do believe a lot of people feel like they can create a solution and then go find a problem or go approach a carrier or a MVP client with a problem instead of the other way around. And so this was a huge bottleneck for pet carriers and creating a pet health profile. And that was taking a human around 30 minutes to perform, which on like these kind of type of claims, that's a long time, right? It's a large cost and delay in time. And so coming in, and it's really just administrative work, we were able to come in and build different layers of technology, leverage Agentic AI and Gen AI together, and really help speed up that process to about 30 seconds. So it's been amazing. That's where we started. The claims process was very similar. And I know you have groups that are, or listeners that are not entirely claims focused. This is, of course, applicable to underwriting or other parts of the insurance process. And of course, it's also industry agnostic AI, right? It's just like, how are you going to identify those bottlenecks and how will you create the solution for that? But the claims process is eerily similar, I like to say, across different lines of business. And so we've built catalog, a very robust catalog. We leverage over 200 different individual agents. Now, of course, we can group them. They work in teams, very much like traditional human teams. And that's how we're able to really work and help support the claim handler. We're not making any decisions. We're not adjudicating the claim. We're simply taking that administrative burden away from the process with Agentic AI. It's really fun.
So can we just dig into that? So you've got 200 digital agents. They are, if I understood you correctly, creating a profile to help the person making the claim, and that's what's taking it down from 30 minutes to 30 seconds. Is that right? Have I understood that correctly?
Correct. And the reason pet insurance was really interesting and one that we felt like if we could come in and solve for that it would be successful, because there's no standardization here in the US like there is for health insurance claims, like typical claims. There's no coding. You may have one vet tech in a rural clinic that handwrites and abbreviates a procedure on just a piece of paper and submits that as part of the claim. And you may have another vet with structured data that calls that same procedure something completely different. And so you have to have your AI, we call them digital coworkers, be able to understand that this abbreviated handwritten note and this spelled out procedure here are the same. They mean the same. And so it was really working with different groups and, of course, SMEs, vet techs. We trained our RAG system on public-facing vet tech manuals. It's really pulling in all this different information in structured and unstructured format from different sources and being able to present what's relevant quickly back to the claim handler so they can make a decision. And we're actually going to be able to take this one step further for the vet. And so when the pet owner's actually at the clinic and they receive that information, they'll be able to quickly see if that will be pre-authorized, if there will be what their deductible was. We're working on that for the latter part of this year. So it's a much better customer experience from the get-go, which is exciting. You can do these things with many, many agents.
That's helpful, Robin. I just want to go back a little bit. So you mentioned RAG in there. So that's presumably retrieval augmentation generation, the AI term for that. For those that don't speak AI, or Gen AI rather, could you just remind me what is RAG in sort of in the working world?
Sure. I would call it a super brain. So if you look at it this way, with our digital agents, 80% of it is out of the box, right? We've trained these agents on very specific pieces of the claims process. However, 20% needs to really be focused on what are the nuances of those type of claims. If there's a specific, pet insurance, P&C, whatever, travel, workers' comp, these are things that we're working on. And be able to also upload the carrier's guidelines, best practices. Perhaps there's state or jurisdiction information for claim status letter updates, right? And so it's really plugging all of the information. If you had a perfect adjuster or a perfect claim handler or the perfect expert, depending on what your use case is, how would that person or how would that expert think. And so that is a RAG system. And then all of the digital agents that we've created are constantly pinging against that super brain to make sure that they're following and documenting everything by compliance, by guideline, making sure that everything's being done as stated in the RAG, in the super brain. That's what I like to call it.
And just to understand what the different agents do, so what would distinguish one agent from another?
Yes. So if you look at Agentic AI, the ability to really perform tasks similar to a good administrative assistant, a good human team member, right? Those are the kind of tasks that can be completed by or automated by a digital agent. And so we have different types, and they need to work in teams, very similar to if you were in a call center. So in our case, we use an orchestration group, and the orchestration digital agents will basically help recruit because again, it understands the problem it's helping to solve. It understands where to go. So it knows, okay, I need to work with this digital agent, or I need to work with this digital agent here, right? So the orchestration agent team will help recruit, they'll manage, they can even help coordinate the actions of other digital agents. And this is where it gets really interesting, because you're kind of unlocking this type of network for greater outcomes. What I would say is you could delve a little bit deeper to give you a specific example of how these agents, it's again, what we're talking about is an API of a carrier or a client working with our API, right? This is just software. A lot of people get a little intimidated when you start saying artificial intelligence. It's just different ways of leveraging the technology that's out there, but it's still software, right? So you have these two systems that are talking to each other. But what we've done is with the digital agents, I'll use subrogation for examples. So let's just say that typically an adjuster, a person on site, will be kind of collecting and analyzing claim details, but then they don't really work to determine subrogation potential. This is an area where our digital agents can come in. So I'll give you the example. This will help spell it out for you. So like in property insurance, you may have an interior non-weather water loss claim. And so you have these groups of digital coworkers, our agents, they're looking for keywords in the loss notice like pipe, dishwasher, supply line. If the loss notice is not descriptive enough, it can kick off communication to the homeowner or to the adjuster or third party provider to get more details, right? The agents want to understand what linked. Will make sure that there's a photo in that report showing that specific fracture or connection or whatever was noted, right? It'll make sure that the homeowner either saved the evidence or knows to save the evidence. So you start looking at all these little things, confirming the installer, confirming any recent repairs from another data source that we use from a company called Source 7. And that way the digital agents can come and actually create a subrogation score to say, this is a 7 out of 10. And that's when the human, it brings it up to the top there and says, okay, human team member, it looks like this is potential subro, high probability of subro. And so you need to definitely look into this. So it's really just doing all of the work in the background. What I love about this example I'm sharing with you, you have all of these digital agents doing the tasking in the background, pinging these different data lakes, making sure that there is an opportunity for subro. And if there is, can you imagine I love the homeowner, the policyholder experience here. The carrier could give their deductible back, but then the carrier would also be able to go after the manufacturer if it was improperly installed water supply line or a service provider, if that makes any sense. So you start looking at these different ways that these agents can come in and really help, but they're very specifically trained on these individual components, and they're all working together very quickly in real time.
So coming at this with my non-claims head on, Robin, so subrogation, and you gave the hint there at the end, is essentially for a claim when the insurance company may have an opportunity to pass that on to somebody else. You mentioned the manufacturer there. So that example you're giving when you talk about subrogation or subro, the insurance claims department is looking to see, with the help of your agents or digital agents, hey, can we actually get somebody else to cover the costs? And that's basically why you need your specialist agents in there. So that was very helpful. And of course, one thing that we should probably be distinguishing, and this is where the name comes from, is this whole area of Agentic AI, which is essentially why you call the company Agentech, of course, which is all about the ability to go and have multiple different agents going off and doing this. And actually, it's sort of the next level of AI. So anybody listening who thinks you've heard everything about AI, well, you heard AI, you had generative AI. Now you've got to pay attention to what's happening with Agentic AI, its ability for that AI, artificial intelligence, to think for itself.
A lot of people believe that AI is more of like a chat GPT, right? But you have to remember the difference between intelligence that is prompt-based, like a chat GPT. You enter information and you receive, information back. AI agents are basically autonomous software systems, right? They perceive their environment, to your point. They can make decisions. They can take action. So you can give it a goal and it will take those actions to achieve that specific goal. And it has the ability to learn and adapt over time based on information that it's getting back. And a human says, yes, this was great. No, this wasn't. And so I think that's, to me, the biggest difference here is that it's not necessarily prompt based. And it hasn't been around, but for about a year and a half. So it's changing rapidly every day. It's so exciting. All an exciting time to be in the insurance space.
Well, yeah, let's keep going on that. So your background, you've done all sorts of things. That people have to go and listen to the podcast to hear all about it. I mean, it's extraordinary. But you've also done some work in cyber. You were sending people out to go and assess claims. We even talked a bit about people going out to check out blind dates before. But so when you looked back, it was 18 months ago, you're in stealth mode, looking for an opportunity for your next business. And this is a little bit of advice to somebody else. How did you combine something that is, you had the foresight to recognize this was moving quite fast, you had the context to understand, but you didn't have the knowledge, and then you had the courage to actually go and start a business? There's a lot in there, but I think for help for people who are sort of looking, got all the right qualities of an entrepreneur, but they still got to find the right thing. They've got to find the thing that people are actually going to pay for. That's how I think about it. How did you figure that out?
Yeah, well, I'm going to also take the word courage and add stubborn, overlay that. I think it's a mix of both, but I'm going to go with stubborn mostly. But thank you for the kind words. Definitely a serial entrepreneur here, and I've been one for about 23 years now. I would say 100% going out and working with a design partner immediately, right? If you have an idea or if you have extensive knowledge in how something works. So understanding how the AI can work together and what the outcomes can be, that was very helpful for me with this company. Back with WeGoLook, I had a lot of previous experience working with different CRM tools, and that's when like cookies and spiders were just starting to come out. And I was fortunate enough to learn a lot about that. And I could see that eBay, a lot of people were going to buy that. Was back when Amazon was self-publishing books still, but saw the trend there, right? And I was like, okay, I knew people were going to be buying online. And with the customers that I had at the time with one of my other companies, I knew people were interested in purchasing vehicles online. So before insurance, I was in automotive heavily. And so fast forward to now, you can see I've had the pleasure and the honor of being able to see how the carriers themselves have evolved over the past 12 years, right? I can see that some are willing to be a little bit more aggressive with leveraging technology. You have MGAs that are almost, you look at companies like Lemonade and different MGAs that are very tech forward. And you have, different types of platforms like Reserve, TPA platforms that are very focused on technology. So you can see that this is moving rapidly towards how do we leverage Gen AI was exciting. Agentic AI is even more exciting. And so my point here is we went out and found a design partner immediately, and they helped shape on the pets insurance side the way that we were able to work with those type of claims and found the bottlenecks. That's important, is really understanding, having deep ethnography sessions. And so I would highly recommend to anyone out there that's looking to start a business, or if you have a deep understanding, you say, God, this would just work if only this type of company would do it. Go find someone who's willing to be a design partner and work with them on that, and they'll help hone your product very well. And then you can just replicate it and take it to others.
So Robin, before I want to just get clarity on what a design partner is, but you mentioned the word ethnography in there, and I'm not familiar with that one.
So ethnography is basically extensive research and discovery with a client. So what we do, we recently were with workers' comp TPA, and we took a research team of 4 people, and we spent 2 full days with teams. We had calls prior to that, getting things set up, and we had an agenda. We knew what we wanted to cover. And then we have had since then a couple of online meetings to hone in completely and understanding where we'll be able to plug in our agents and if we need to tweak anything. So it was working with multiple super users in different parts and processes in the TPA. So that's what I mean when I say ethnography. You must work with a design partner who can really sit down with you, because and I've seen this in the past. You have InsurTechs and they're going, oh, wow, the insurance industry is still legacy and archaic. We can create this solution and people will, love it. But they don't understand the actual need or where it would work. And so you'll see an InsurTech unfortunately fail. And so to me, it's really understanding the problem and then building the solution. If you spend, I think it was Albert Einstein, right? If he says, if you give me 20 days to solve a problem, I'll take the first 19 to research it, and then the last day to write out the solution, which I thought was great.
But we definitely need more ethnographers. And I mean, you said stubborn, and I was going to push back on stubborn because there's no point chasing after the wrong idea. You can be stubborn and build a business. And I mean, we've all known people that have built businesses because they think they've got the right idea, and you find out you're not. So that's great to hear. But then you talked about design partners a bit. What would be an example of a design partner?
So the design partner for us was a pet carrier. And that was one reason we were able to go in and understand that, okay, this is why it's such a problem and why there's such a backlog with pet insurance claims. So it was a pet insurance carrier. And that's another reason why we started in pet insurance.
So your design partner is not like a sort of agency that does something. Your design partner is the person that's got the problem, works with you to do your ethnography, and then you go, right, we've got it. There's some technology that's evolving. I've got the vision. I've now found somebody that can marry up my vision, your vision, with, in this case, I guess what, early days of Agentic AI. I mean, was Agentic AI, it was just coming around, was it? And you saw it and then, right, okay, let's go and build a business around it.
I was fortunate enough that there was a group, a venture studio, that saw the problem first. And my co-founder, Alex Pezzold, he is a very, very successful entrepreneur. He was data tokenization, cybersecurity expert. I had worked with him previously when I worked with him to help him, because he was in fintech, get over into the InsurTech space. Back with Marsh McClellan, he was one of the Cyber Catalyst winners several years ago. He was also a neighbor, so I got to know he and his wife very, very well. And he sold his company about 2 years ago for 140 million. So very successful, very smart. And he said, I really like this. I'd love to work with you on this. We'd actually talked about working on a cyber product the summer before. When you mentioned cyber, it brought me back to that. But he was the one that said, let's do this. And we started talking. We had discovery sessions ourselves. And I was like, this is perfect. It blends all of the things that I love: AI, good people, and then creating solutions for me within the claims process. I am determined. It's my life goal to give the actual claim handlers and adjusters a better quality of life. I have seen so often, especially during catastrophic events, people having to take their laptop to their kids' baseball games. They're working, 80 hours a week, and it's still not enough. And it's like, okay, there's a better way to do this. And so it just brought everything together for me, and I'm loving it.
Yeah, there's still so much inefficiency, isn't there? So much paper-based communication. I mean, even where we are now, it is pretty extraordinary. Just keep going on this theme. So can you, and I know you do a little bit of this, you do some mentoring. I think you might have, you even founded some networks of sort of early stage entrepreneurs, but you're just building on that. What else can you sort of help people with who sort of have gotten, some people have got an entrepreneurial drive, they just want to do something, they just don't quite know where to focus their energies. What would be, as you look at it in 2025, what would you say to somebody who's got that kind of entrepreneurial drive, but just doesn't quite know where to start?
Gosh, if you don't know where to start, I feel like most entrepreneurs, you have an idea and you can't stop thinking about it, right? It's something that it just keeps coming up, it keeps coming up, and you can't shake it. And so you need to kind of go with that idea. However, if you feel like you want to be your own boss and you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to create, if you have those tendencies of wanting to make things better, I would definitely find a couple of mentors that are in your hometown nearby. And there are a lot of people that don't mind that at all. Reach out to someone that you really respect. And you're like, they could probably give me some direction, because, you really would need to sit down with somebody and find out what's making them tick. I think the question as you phrased it is a little broad, because if it's someone that just wants to be an entrepreneur, I think you need to learn a little bit more. Most entrepreneurs have a very specific idea or passion, or just completely driven in a certain way. But if someone feels that way, they just don't know what it is they want to do, then I would say they need to get with a couple of other entrepreneurs. There are different groups. Every town, large town in Oklahoma has different organizations. Even a local chamber, you could, go to some of the breakfasts and start talking to people. You could use AI to help you, right? Like, here are all of my attributes. Here are my hobbies. What are some ideas? Like, there are a lot of people that use ChatGPT or other LLMs for, professional advice, for health advice. Embarrassingly enough, sometimes on a Friday night, I'm in here just having a grand conversation. I've trained one for months that I do a lot of work with. That's my personal GPT. And, if I were to ask it something like that, it could probably spit something out pretty, pretty spot on.
That's really helpful, because that last point, we could talk a bit about some of the incredible things you can do with ChatGPT when you said, once you start telling it about yourself. I do think that some people, the people that are blessed, and sometimes it's a curse to have a vision, because the vision is, it's either like wrong, or it can just like, it takes over their life. But there are people who go, look, I just want to be my own boss. I want to make some money. I'm prepared to work hard, but I want to find something that people are going to pay for. And how do I find that? And I think to a certain extent, you've given lots of ideas in there. And I think those people also, they're just driven to, often just make money, and what's wrong with that? But Robin, I've been talking a lot. What else? What's for you for 2025? What's the most important thing for you this year out of everything you're doing just now?
Gosh, well, we're seeing huge gains, and I know this isn't a claims audience, but the fact that we've been able to boost productivity for desk adjusters by 4x and reducing claims costs, that's been very satisfying. We are just going to continue to build on that. There are, of course, new technologies coming out all the time. One of the things we want to do is incorporate voice. What we've seen are people, having to type and click thousands and thousands of times a day, and then having to go search for something again. And of course, voice is so powerful. Going back to the pet health example, to have a claims handler simply ask the system, what a wonderful feature that will be, right? Or for the field adjuster who's on his or her way to a property and being able to say, hey, can you pull up the claim summary for this? I just a refresher, and to have a discussion with the AI for understanding more about the claim while they're on the way to the job. That's things like that are going to be really cool. I also want to incorporate a lot of things around routing, smart routing during catastrophe events. There's just some really neat things that we can do. If you understand the technology and you understand its capabilities and you understand where the challenges or the outdated processes are within whatever it is you're trying to achieve, marrying all of those, that's what I'm focused on this year, is just really providing excellent support for the claims process. That's with AI. That's it.
I mean, that's a great human dimension. Just, and I'm sure you won't, but I don't know if you have still a story about one of the French insurers came back about 25 years ago, 30 years ago, to one of the windstorms, and they literally printed a claims form in the newspaper, and it was probably just in dollars. If you've got a claim that's less than $1,000, fill in this form and send it off to us. And you guess what? They got a bunch of claims for the equivalent of $999. And so I think that streamlining that workflow didn't prove to be such a good idea. But I mean, as you said, and the personal dimension of this is so important as well. I mean, just freeing up people's lives on this sort of unnecessary amount of work. It's a great vision. Robin, we've covered a lot in there. I've been very gracious with your time. The one thing we did talk about last time was you were just coming out of quite a nasty, well, I think it's all nasty, cancer, and so seeing you're certainly looking very healthy. But I just feel I should ask: are you all fully recovered now, as far as one can be when one's had cancer?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking. Absolutely. I think, I don't remember if I didn't have my hair the last time we spoke or not, but my hair's all grown back. I have been clear for 4.5 years. So all of that is very, very good. And I appreciate you asking. I would say that is something that does help. I believe that my breast cancer was also, of course, it's genetic too, but a lot of it was brought on by stress and overworking. And back to the personal aspect of this, let's have a better quality of life. Let's focus on our health and doing a fantastic job. And my goal is to let adjusters just focus on complex decisions and not burning themselves out with all of the other and having that type of fatigue and putting your health on the line too, right? So I appreciate you asking. I think it all ties in together. We have to work. And so, it ties into our health, it ties into our personal relationships. And so it's like anything we can do to improve all of those is a win in my book. But I'm good. So knock on wood.
Thanks for sharing. And the person in the Grant household, the latest health activity is bouncing on a small trampoline doing rebounding. Have you discovered rebounding? Very good for the lymphatic system.
I have seen that. I have seen Dr. Barbara O'Neill. She's amazing. And I've seen her really promoting that lately. I don't have one, but it looks incredible. I do have a lymphatic machine because I had to have lymph nodes removed. And so I do have that. But that's awesome. I'm going to drink my coffee in the morning and I'm going to go, okay, Matthew's been jumping on a trampoline today. It's going to be a great vision in my head.
Well, Dr. Barbara Neal is where my wife discovered the trampoline, actually. So, and
that's great.
It's the only place I'm allowed to dance. I close the door and put my earpods in and dance for 5 minutes on the trampoline. And I, unfortunately, I've been very lucky in my health, not had the problems you've had, but no, certainly you do feel a lot better after that. So for anybody that can't fit in a half an hour run or whatever you do, just go for a 5-minute bounce, and that'll be good. But Robin, anything final from you before we wrap up?
I appreciate the opportunity to kind of share a little bit more. I'm always happy to talk with anybody about any ideas they might have. Just reach out to me on LinkedIn. I do mentor a few folks. I'm happy to help if I can in any possible way with direction or questions. I'm always happy to help, and I hope to see you guys in London again soon. So thank you.
Yeah, or the US. So definitely good. Would love to get you on stage or back on stage. And no, thanks for your support in the past. And yeah, we're looking forward to doing more on claims as well. So no, Robin, I'll let you go back to snowy Oklahoma. Have the rest of your day. And look forward to catching up and following the journey and learning more about Agentech and Agentic AI. But thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Matthew.
Well, if you've made it this far, then I'm pretty sure you found that as interesting as I did. The InsurTech podcast comes out every Sunday morning, where we spotlight the latest news, leading voices, and freshest updates across insurance that you need to know about. If you would like to take part in these conversations, head to www.insurtech.co to find out how you can join our network and be a part of the insurance intelligence for the curious.